and cohesive societies. We invest in women's economic empowerment and in a fairer world of work for all. This year's theme, Unite, Invest to Prevent Violence Against Women and Girls, couldn't be more opportune. I call on all government to ratify and implement Convention 190. I urge employers, workers, and their organizations to engage in dialogue and invest in zero-tolerance workplace policies. Together, we can build a brighter future for women and girls free from violence and harassment.
On the profile interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the Regional Secretary of ITF, Comrade Safiyanu. It brings us up to speed on some of the activities that happened at the just concluded 46th International Delegate Conference of ITF, while also propose solutions to some of the challenges that workers in the transportation sector are faced with special emphasis for governments in the continent to prioritize easy access within the continent. Congratulations on a successful outing. There was a delegate conference in Marrakesh. It's the 46th of its kind. Can you bring us up to speed on how the conference went and what should probably workers be expecting from the region?
Yeah, it was actually our 46th Congress of the ITF, which usually programs are actually put forward in terms of trying to design our inter-Congress period. And according to our Congress team document, and we have been able to endorse the 6 demands that the workers have decided that we should focus on. These 6 demands are, of course, occupational safety and health, rights, equality, sustainable transport, future of work, and of course what we refer to as supply chain accountability. So that actually has been endorsed, and this is what is going to drive the process of our activities within the inter-Congress period, that is from now and of course up to 2029. But of course, one of the climax of the activity was the political activities, where I'm very glad to inform you that this is the first time that we have 2 very important things. For example, Nigerian perspective, we have Comrade Enju, who has been elected as the president, one of the vice presidents of ITF Global, and of course the chairman of ITF Africa. And of course we have also Alhaji Najim from Road Transport, who is also has been elected as one of the executive board members of ITF. But in a whole, I think it's something that is very interesting for me to inform you that for the first time, Africa have emerged out of Congress with about 8 members of ITF executive board. That
shows growth and improvement. I know one of the issues that was raised up during the conference is that of inclusivity. I wouldn't know what more you would like to say about that.
Okay, just as I've said, part of the 6 demands that we have highlighted in terms of the endorsement in our Congress team document was issues that has to do with equality in terms of, but when you talk about equality, I'm talking about inclusiveness, both gender balance and of course. So that has actually been taken care of. So the mandate that we have been given now is to make sure that in all our activities that will run between now and up to 2025, we must make sure that there's that inclusiveness in terms of carrying women along, for example, in terms of making sure that youth are actually fairly represented. So I think I'm happy to tell you that we are actually on course.
But from my own personal observation, we have more women coming into the transportation business. But there seems to be this perception, like as if women are not interested in the transportation business. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, or is there any platform of encouragement to ensure that we have both genders actively participate in the sector?
Yeah, of course. But historically, transportation business or transportation activities is actually dominated by men in the past. But there has been a lot of, improvement where you can see now, for example, even in the aviation sector, for example, you have women pilots, you have women engineers. And of course, where we have some little challenge is probably in the maritime, where, maritime is actually very complex. You can imagine where a ship is being moved for about 6 to 7 months or even up to a year. This is very, very challenging, but we have been encouraged, which we are trying to make sure that we move forward on that matter to make sure that women are actually carried along in that perspective. And of course, as I've told you earlier, it's not just about the activity per se, including the political structure. This is the first time, even before the last thing that happened, that we got additional one woman to be the 8th member of the executive board in ITF. In our conference in Abidjan, where we had this African regional conference leading up to the Congress, because Congress was the largest or biggest, avenue for us to come and sit down and make sure we endorse the activity. We had 50-50 out of the 6 executive board members that we elected in Abidjan that we endorsed in Marrakesh was 50-50. 3 men and 3 women. One from Democratic that in DRC, her name is Joel Mputu. We have also one from Senegal, her name is Mariam Diallo. We also have the woman chair in Africa, her name is Marima Tuguba. Then we have another 3 men, of course, Adeinju and Jim from South Africa, and of course another person called Adima from Uganda. So we have actually balanced up the whatever inclusiveness we are trying to think about, whether women or otherwise. And of course, interestingly, again, at the end of the day, one of our ladies also contested for the chair of the the youth wing. She came from Tanzania and she won. So that is actually what is giving us this big number in terms of having. In fact, as I'm talking to you, within the 8, I want to believe that we have almost 50-50 also, because we have one additional woman within the structure of political leadership in Africa.
As the Regional Secretary of Africa ITF, what would you say is the challenges the continent is facing in terms of the transport industry? Well,
there are so many challenges that are actually come, particularly in Africa. One that is actually very prominent now is about when we are talking about sustainable transport, where we're talking about climate change, for example. We're talking about transition from the fossil fuel to renewable energy. These are some of the things that I think we need to brace up to make sure that we move along with the world. We in ITF, we have actually decided to make sure that we brace up to these challenges to make sure that Africans play our role in trying to advance these challenges that we are actually facing. It is also very interesting to you to note, and of course some of the viewers to also know that Nigeria, for example, we have from the government perspective, I understand that there's a transformation where we never had this Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. We also have it. And of course, we also have it in Kenya and South Africa, and of course, I think Namibia. These are the only few countries that I can recall that have started thinking about this sustainable transportation in terms of the renewable energy, perspective.
So, what's the role of ITF towards guiding relevant African countries or presidents towards achieving policies that will improve the sector?
Okay, first and foremost, we need to understand that ITF actually stands for the advancement, or what we really literally do is to promote and advance the transport workers' rights, justice, and equality. And one of our slogans, or the most popular slogan that we are actually proud of now, is "We move the world," because the world cannot move without us, because we move goods and services. And also, of course, you can recall, even during the lockdown, during COVID-19, when the whole world was actually locked down, things were actually moving by us, particularly from the resilience and, of course, active participation of our seafarers, where they move, global trade within the sea, So I think this is one thing that we really have to take note, that we need to make sure that government and transport institution, involve us in trying to shape whatever policy, because as the popular saying goes, that he who wears the shoes knows where it pinches. We actually know where it pinches, because we're the ones that are in the front line of whatever transport is actually being done. Whatever institutions, whatever it is, what they do usually is to formulate policies. And we actually practically implement some of all those policies. So we need to make sure that we are on the table, to make sure that we also contribute our quota in trying to drive the process of transportation globally.
Okay, finally, digitalization seems to be what is driving every sector in the country, and we're experiencing it more than ever in the transportation sector. In terms of capacity, in terms of upskilling, what more is ITF doing, and what advice or support or training is ITF bringing to the table for its members?
This is also part of the sixth demand that I've just mentioned. You know, when I was talking to initially, I talked about what we call the future of work. Future of work talks about, the emergence of technology and how do we, tighten our belt to make sure we brace up with the challenge. Of course, things that has to do with, skilling, upskilling, and reskilling. And of course, if I can refer you now simply into the aviation sector, for example, this is where this thing is actually hitting us very well, because we have lost a lot of membership because of these issues that has to do with technology. Of course, now at the comfort of your room, you can just decide to buy your ticket, you do your tracking, do everything. That has, eaten deeply into our membership. But what we're saying is that I think from the record of one of the statistics that I had, that about the essence or the need or what is actually driving the technology into making sure that things are done technologically is because there was a statistics or a record that shows that about 90% of road accident in transportation, happens because of human error. 90%. So what happens to the 10%? Presumably, the 10%, presuming from our end, and we can say, is that because of also a technical error from the machines that are actually doing this work. So, but what we're saying in essence is that, yes, if technology is bringing good things, but we're actually clamoring, we want to change the narrative to make sure that there must be a human presence in every technology. Of course, we are aware when the issue that has to do with the increase due to accident, for example, where they are talking about increase of pilot, for example, instead of 2 or 3 pilots, in an aircraft. Of course, now, for example, even autopilot. Yes, an aircraft can be set on that autopilot, but you can see that there is a pilot somewhere, seated somewhere, so that if there is that failure of that technological imperfection, the human presence can take over. So that is what we're trying to say. Yes, technology is good, but there must be a human presence in any technology.
Okay, very good way to end. But however, what happens to the welfare of your members in this process as the advent of technology disrupted how workers are being treated in the transportation sector?
Okay, when I mentioned the 6 demand, these are all have been all in caps. They are all being encapsulated in the 6 demand that we have endorsed. Whatever they're doing is going to be in that 6 demand. Of course, as I've told you, we must be on the table because we drive the process. Transport workers must be on the table to make sure that we play our role in any technology. I've just talked about how do you skill or reskill and upskill, transport workers to make sure that we actually fit into whatever technology that's. Otherwise, if we don't really do that, we're going to be losing our members. We're going to be losing our strength. So I think this is one of the things that I think in ITF we're trying to make sure that we hold on to make sure that in any CBA discussions that is being done in whatever sector, whether maritime sector, yes, of course, skilling and reskilling must actually be part of it.
I'm tempted to ask another question, which is that of easy movement within Africa. I know we have the ECOWAS agreement. We have other agreements that are similar to that of ECOWAS, but there seems to be this challenge of easy access for Africans to move within Africa. Even to fly out of the country, it's easier to access Europe, it's easier to access America, it's easier to access China many times than even accessing other African countries. Since you are the regional secretary of a transportation sector, what would be your message to presidents or other stakeholders, and what would be your recommendation to promote easy access within Africa?
Okay, well, this is probably you're trying to focus about the business model of how airlines, for example, in civilization can actually work together so that we will have an open airspace with the easy access of transportation in every corner in Africa. And of course, I agree with you that probably sometimes, or sometimes, You could see an African traveling maybe to some part of Africa, but he has to go to Europe first, then connect from Europe, or go to Asia, for example, maybe it's Doha or even Dubai, and come back to Africa. But one of the things that we really want African governments to think about first, about easy access, is the visa issue. This is the problem. This is one of the biggest problems that we have in Africa. If we have easy access to every country, just as it is happening in Europe and other parts of the globe, for you to cross over from one country to one country in Africa without any restriction, visa-free exercise. Let us start from there. If that is not done, then probably in this kind of business model, we are going to have it very, very difficult. And of course, I know there are a lot of initiatives that have actually come along in terms of trying to open the spaces, but it is not really working now. Why is it not working? We need to have that political will. Government must be very, very sincere to make sure that we need to reconnect, or we need to connect Africans effectively. Yes, you can connect Africa effectively, but first and foremost, how do we remove these visa restrictions within Africa?
And we're in that stage whereby workers are moving around to earn their living, and it's not static. We even have remote work taking over. So at times you need to visit some parts of some African countries to get some things done. How would this also improve livelihood and also improve the labor movement if there is easy access?
Let me just let you know here. Migration is not something that starts now. Migration is part of our history globally. People must move. People must move from one place to the other. Don't restrict them. Don't bring conditions that's going to be very difficult for them to move. Every African needs to move to every African country, just as it's happening in Europe now. You can cross from Bulgaria probably to Spain, for example, easily, without any visa restriction. So first and foremost, if we really want to be sincere to ourselves about the open sky, let's look at this rudiment, this basic need. Of course, if you open sky and you say I can fly easily from here to South Africa, for example, and I have visa restriction, how do I go to South Africa? The basic thing is that we must remove these visa restrictions so that Africans can mingle, Africans can interact easily.
And develop.
And develop, of course.
Shared prosperity.
That's exactly. You have made it clearly the way I think is
Thank you for sharing time with us and your knowledge. And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijasan. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.